Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that changed my life, something real simple. Focus on yourself. Let them go. One of the biggest things holding people back in life is their attachment to those who already chose to walk away. We don't realize it at first, but every time we run after someone who left, we're turning our back on our own path. Growth requires energy. And when that energy is constantly being spent on trying to bring people back who decided to exit your life, there's little left for your own elevation. It's like watering a dead plant hoping it'll bloom again. Some people were only meant to be part of your story temporarily, and that's okay. The problem is we try to make temporary people fit into permanent roles. And in the process, we delay our own progress. You see, growth isn't comfortable. It demands sacrifice. It means accepting that not everyone who started with you is going to finish with you. And that's where a lot of people get stuck in the emotional trap of feeling abandoned, rejected, or betrayed. So instead of pushing forward, they stay behind, emotionally chasing people who've already moved on. They check their social media, replay conversations, search for closure in places that only offer confusion. And all the while, life is moving on without them. You have to understand this, people leave for a reason. Sometimes the reason's yours to know, sometimes it's not. But either way, their exit created space. And space is where transformation happens. When someone walks away, it's not always a loss. It could be a divine setup, a blessing in disguise. God has a way of removing people who no longer fit your purpose, even when you're too emotionally attached to see it. What we often view as rejection is really redirection. But you can't grow if you constantly focus on who's missing. You can't step into your future if your eyes are locked on the rearview mirror. Your next level is not behind you, it's ahead of you. But to get there, you have to be present. You have to be focused. And most importantly, you have to stop carrying emotional baggage that doesn't belong to you anymore. You can't run toward your dreams while dragging the weight of past relationships that expire. That's how you stay stuck. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about yourself to prioritize your growth. It means you choosing peace over confusion, clarity over chaos, and purpose over pain. You don't owe explanations to people who left without offering one. You don't need to prove your worth to those who didn't see it. And you certainly don't need to fight for a place in someone's life when the door has already been closed. Real growth begins the moment you stop chasing and start building. It begins when you realize that anyone who truly values you will stay, will show up, will match your effort. And those who don't, let them go. You don't have to beg for love. You don't have to convince someone to see your value. If they couldn't recognize it the first time, their presence now won't help you grow. Your energy is your responsibility. Every second you spend focused on someone who walked away is a second you could have invested into yourself, your healing, your goals, your passion, your journey. It's not selfish to do that. It's necessary. Because when you stop chasing what left, you create space for what's meant to arrive. You stop repeating cycles and start creating progress. You shift your attention from the pain of the past to the promise of the future. And that's when the real growth begins. When you finally give yourself permission to move forward without dragging the weight of who didn't stay. There comes a time in life when you have to realize that focusing on yourself is not a sign of arrogance, coldness, or selfishness. It's survival. In a world that constantly demands your attention, your energy, your time, and your heart. It's easy to lose yourself trying to be everything to everyone. People will drain you if you let them. They'll take and take and take until there's nothing left of you for you. And then you're left feeling empty, exhausted, unseen, wondering when you stop mattering to yourself. But self-focus is how you reclaim that space. It's how you remind the world and yourself that your well-being matters too. People will tell you to be there for everyone, to keep showing up, to keep being available. But what they don't tell you is what happens when you break from caring too much. They don't talk about the nights you can't sleep because your mind is racing with everyone else's problems. They don't mention the way your body starts shutting down when you're constantly putting yourself last. That's why self-focus isn't a luxury, it's a survival skill. It's how you stay alive in a world that forgets how much you're giving. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't give peace to others if you don't have peace within. And you surely can't guide anyone toward the light if you're drowning in your own darkness. People think it's noble to sacrifice yourself for others all the time, but there's a fine line between support and self-neglect. If you're constantly ignoring your own needs, brushing your feelings aside, pretending you're okay when you're not, that's not strength. That's silence and suffering. And that silence builds up until it becomes anger, resentment, burnout, or breakdown. Focusing on yourself means learning to check in with your spirit before checking your phone. It means saying no without guilt. It means choosing rest over pressure. It means setting boundaries not because you don't love people, but because you finally started loving yourself enough to protect your peace. It means showing up for yourself every day, even when nobody else does. Because nobody can heal for you. Nobody can grow for you. That's your job. The world won't slow down and hand you time. You have to take it. And in that time, you invest in your body, your mind, your soul, your dream. You remind yourself that you are not just a role you play for others. You're a whole human being with dreams, desires, feelings, and needs. You're allowed to take space. You're allowed to choose yourself. You're allowed to not answer every call, not fix every problem, not carry every burden. When you focus on yourself, your entire life starts to shift. You stop needing validation from others because you start validating yourself. You stop looking outward for happiness because you begin creating it from within. You stop settling for crumbs in relationships because you've learned to feed yourself real love, love that starts with you. You begin to see your time as sacred, your energy is expensive, your peace as priceless. And when you live like that, the wrong people start falling away, not because you pushed them, but because they no longer know how to exist in the presence of someone who values themselves. Self-focus is not about ignoring others. It's about not ignoring yourself anymore. It's the realization that you matter just as much as anyone else you show up for. That your dreams are just as valid. That your mental health is not negotiable. That your future depends on how you treat yourself today. So don't feel bad for stepping back, going quiet, setting boundaries, or choosing peace over pressure. That's not selfish. That's how you survive. That's how you live. Letting go is one of the hardest things a person can do. especially when their heart is deeply involved. We hold on to people, memories, situations, and expectations, not because they're always good for us, but because they're familiar. We get attached to what we thought it could be, to what we hoped would change, to the potential we saw. But wisdom isn't in how long you hold on. It's in knowing when to let go. And that decision, although painful, is not a sign of weakness. It's the sign of a person who has grown strong enough to choose peace over pain and clarity over confusion. There's a false belief in this world that the longer you fight to keep something, the stronger and more loyal you are. But what if that something is hurting you? What if it's draining your spirit, killing your self-worth, stealing your joy? At what point do you realize that real strength sometimes looks like walking away, not because you don't care, but because you finally started caring by yourself? It takes courage to say, this is not serving me anymore. It takes emotional maturity to understand that some battles aren't meant to be won. They're meant to teach you, then release you. Letting go doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean you've given up. It simply means you're done fighting battles that are costing you too much emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. It means you're making room for something better, even if you don't know what that looks like yet. And that's where the wisdom comes in. Knowing that just because it hurts doesn't mean it's right. Just because it was once good doesn't mean it still fits your life now. Just because you loved them doesn't mean they were meant to stay. There's nothing weak about choosing yourself after years of choosing someone else. There's nothing soft about deciding to heal. Letting go takes more strength than holding on ever did, because holding on is often tied to fear. Fear of being alone, fear of the unknown, fear of regret. But wisdom reminds you that you can survive alone. You can grow in the unknown, and you can build a future without regret if you move forward with intention and self-respect. It's not about forgetting the past. It's about not letting the past define your worth or your direction. People might not understand your decision to let go, and that's okay. They don't have to live with your inner battles. They don't hear the conversations you have with yourself at night. They don't feel the weight you carry just to keep pretending everything's fine. So don't explain yourself to those who judge your healing. They're not walking in your shoes. They don't know what it took to stand up, to let go, and to move forward with faith instead of fear. Letting go is wisdom because it teaches you what real love is, starting with self-love. It teaches you that closure doesn't always come in the form of answers. Sometimes it's just a quiet moment when your heart finally accepts what your mind already knew. It teaches you that peace is more valuable than presence, that energy speaks louder than words, that your future is too important to waste on someone or something that keeps pulling you backward. So when you choose to let go, you're not being weak. You're being wise. You're protecting your spirit, preserving your energy, and prioritizing your purpose. You're honoring the journey ahead instead of staying stuck in a chapter that no longer reflects who you are becoming. And that is one of the most powerful decisions a person can ever make. There are moments in life when it feels like everything is falling apart. People walk away without warning, opportunities disappear, relationships end, and you're left wondering what you did wrong. But what if nothing is going wrong at all? What if the loss is part of a bigger plan? What if God is removing something not to punish you, but to prepare you for something greater? It's not always easy to understand in the moment, but often the things that break our hearts are the very things that clear the path for our breakthrough. God doesn't remove to harm, He removes to make room. We spend so much time trying to hold on to people and things that God is trying to take away. We pray for growth, for purpose, for peace, and then panic when things start falling out of place. But we don't always recognize that the removal is part of the blessing. Sometimes the people we thought were right for us are actually the very ones holding us back. Sometimes the job we lost was the thing limiting our potential. Sometimes the rejection wasn't a setback, it was divine protection. But when you're in the middle of it, it doesn't feel like protection. It feels like pain. That's why trusting the process is so important. You have to believe that every exit is followed by an entrance. Every closed door leads to a better one. Every loss is making space for something that aligns with who you're becoming. It takes faith to say, I don't know why this is happening, but I believe there's a reason. That's not easy when you're hurting, when you're confused, when you're grieving. But faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting that God does even when you don't. Sometimes we delay our blessings by trying to put back what God already took away. We beg people to stay. We try to force situations to work. We chase what's familiar instead of walking toward what's meant for us. But God didn't operate in confusion. When He removes someone from your life, it's because they can't go where you're going. Their role in your story is over. Trying to rewrite the chapter won't bring peace. It'll only delay your progress. Letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you finally decided to surrender to something higher. You have to remember that God sees the entire picture. He knows what you need before you do. And sometimes what we think we need is actually the thing blocking the real blessing. That relationship you were crying over, God saw the heartbreak coming before you did. That opportunity that slipped through your fingers, God knew it would limit your growth. That friend who changed on you, God heard the conversations you didn't. It might feel like rejection, but it's actually When you trust the process, you begin to live with more peace. You stop chasing what left. You stop fearing what's next. You start believing that everything, even the painful things, are working for your good. You realize that God's timing is better than your plans. That waiting doesn't mean wasting. That being removed from something in the end is the beginning of something new. You can't receive what's next if you still hold on to what's gone. The faster you let go of what no longer serves you, the faster God can give you what will. So when something or someone leaves your life, don't just ask why. Ask, what is this making space for? Because that's what God does. He clears out the old so He can bring in the new. He shuts doors that no longer serve you. He disconnects you from what's comfortable to connect you with what's divine. It's not the end. It's a shift. It's a setup. It's a sign that something better is coming if you trust the process. One of the most exhausting things you can do in life is carry the weight of someone else's potential. We see their flaws. We see their struggles. And because we care, we try to fix them. We try to help, to guide, to push, to inspire. But what we don't always see right away is that not everyone wants to be helped. Not everyone is ready to change. And you can't force growth on someone who's committed to staying the same. No matter how much you love them, no matter how badly you want them to win, you cannot grow for them. You are only responsible for your own growth, your own healing, your own evolution. We sometimes confuse loyalty with responsibility. We think if I don't help them, who will? Or if I walk away, they'll fall apart. But that thinking is a trap, because what often happens is you lose yourself while trying to save someone else. You pour and pour and pour into their cup until yours is empty, and yet they remain the same. And then you wonder, why am I tired? Why am I resentful? It's because you've taken on a role that was never yours to carry. You've tried to be their answer, when that answer has to come from within them. Growth is a personal decision, cannot be transferred, cannot be gifted, cannot be done through love alone. A person has to want it. They have to choose it. And sometimes the hardest part of loving someone is realizing that you have to let them walk their own path, even if it's filled with mistakes and delays. You can offer guidance, but you can't force direction. You can speak truth, but you can't make them listen. You can be an example, but you can't drag them into transformation. That's not your job. You were not put on this earth to fix people. You were put here to grow, to learn, to heal, to love, and yes, to help when you can, but not at the expense of your own peace. It's noble to care, but it's dangerous to sacrifice yourself in the process. You cannot build your future while constantly babysitting someone else's progress. You cannot evolve while anchoring yourself to people who refuse to move. At some point, you have to ask yourself, am I helping them grow, or am I holding myself back trying to carry them? You see, when you focus on your own growth, something powerful happens. You start creating boundaries. You start moving with purpose. You stop waiting for people to catch up. And that's not selfish. That's wise, because your journey matters. Your healing matters. Your time matters. You can't waste it waiting for someone to become who they're not even trying to be. You have to accept that some people don't want growth. They want comfort. They want attention. They want someone to feel sorry for them more than they want to change. And that's not something you can fix. What you can do is rise. You can focus on your own lane. You can take responsibility for your own life. You can let go of the guilt that says you're abandoning someone just because you're choosing yourself. That's not abandonment. That's alignment. You were never meant to stay stuck just so someone else doesn't feel left behind. If they really value growth, they'd be running right next to you, not asking you to slow down. And if one day they decide to grow, they'll find their way. But it won't be because you forced them. It will be because they finally chose to. So free yourself from the pressure of being everyone's savior.